the reason why we keep that is because we can show this is some of the awareness and outreach campaigns we've been doing. And then this product tracker helps us keep track of what we've had published. And a lot of this is earned media.
And each one of those links are links right to the article. If you want to see the earned media that he's talking about, if they're blue, you can click on it.
Next slide. I did want to mention that we've been collecting feedback, just raw data for JSIP through email and social media. And we've been receiving a lot of that already. So it's great to see that folks are, first of all, reading information that we put out into the world, and then secondly, engaging with it. And it hasn't been, I mean, it's been thoughtful feedback. And I think most people who are responding are, you know, at the end of their message, they're saying that they appreciate the opportunity to offer the feedback and that they have hope that we'll consider that. Next slide. As I mentioned, the final report, and that was received today, and it will be important for us to get some information out. The part of the plan with that was to let the public know that this was happening today, and then send information out to kind of give them a glimpse into what happened, to be transparent. Next slide. Working on publications. Again, I've said this before, one of the things that was a little bit alarming to me, since I've worked in the publications world quite a bit as far as developing publications and socializing publications and keeping track of publications, was I noticed that I didn't see really any publications that were up to date, or we just didn't have them. So that's still something that we're trying to tackle, and we've been able to get a couple done. But I think this biennial report will be a really great publication that our public here who's interested in what we're doing will appreciate. It's going to have a lot of excellent information, and so I'll be sharing more with you all about that, and then asking for a note from the commissioners as well for that publication.
Along those lines, the COG, I think, stepped up their communication game, and I can't remember if they've done it before, but put out an annual report, I guess after the first of the year, and one report is all 3 counties, and then break down county by county, but nice layout, photographs, some text, I mean, attractive, and so you might take a look at that. And it's a difficult organization to say what we do, because a lot of moving parts, and so kind of this is a little easier. We have departments, and it's pretty clear who does what. But anyway, I thought the COG did a nice job with their annual report this year.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at that, and then once we get a little bit farther along with this, I can show a preview of that and kind of give you an idea of what it's going to look like. So I've been working with community development, public works, natural areas, and parks, potential publications. We want to do one for county parks. There's one that community development is looking to do, which is a Benton County driver's tour. And so it's kind of like a historical publication, but it's also a publication that can show folks historical places in Benton County that they can drive to with some nice photos, which I think will be great for our branding and to be able to hand out at events and share digitally and stuff. So excited about that. We have 3 different designers that we're working with already, and they're all great. So the one that's doing our biennial report, I really like working with her because she's really good. She's also affordable and just easy to work with. So we have a lot of options when it comes to talented designers, videographers, photographers, and we're able to vet them and make sure that they're good at their job and that they're also affordable. Next slide. So ongoing work, of course, is our newsletters, our social media, our media report, PIO engagement calendar, media and strategic communication policy, and our communications plan, which I presented at the last leadership meeting. Part of the overall strategic communications plan is the community outreach and engagement. Then the next one, once the media and strategic communications policy is officially approved, we will work on adding the media relations portion to the overall strategic plan. Next slide. That's all. Hopefully we didn't take longer than we were supposed to, because I know it's a super long day, so appreciate
I
you bearing with us.
hope you didn't got anything out, because this is, I think this is stepped up our game, and we had a little lapse there for a while. We were at full strength on community engagement, and I just, like I said earlier, appreciate trying different things. It's a challenging field to keep up with. And like you're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. I like to kind of try to take a holistic approach to it. And like I always say this, it's probably a little too redundant. There's lots of different right ways to do it. There's also like lots of different wrong ways to do it. Sometimes folks specialize in certain areas, but I want to make sure that we're encompassing as much of that strategic communications umbrella as we can. But also I appreciate the opportunity to come here and present this stuff once a month. Because I think it's important for your awareness.
I appreciate hearing all the positive news. That's nice. You guys didn't ask us to shut down any funding or services to vulnerable populations. I appreciate that.
No, I'm glad you brought that up too, because it's kind of like putting deposits of goodwill into a bank. We have so much heavy stuff that we're dealing with, and the public is kind of giving us some negative feedback sometimes, but it's important to also keep in mind that we're putting a lot of other positive information out there that people appreciate. And I think that pays dividends into the big picture.
Yeah, and anything worth doing is worth measuring, and it's you guys are doing a great job of that. So thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
I'm happy to know that Erica's emails were tracking, because I always wondered, like, they know if I click on this, so I always would click on it and look over it real quick. Okay, I clicked on it, so
They were,
got the
they
credit.
aren't any longer being
That's okay. I'll still click on them.
and that was to track how many people were actually looking at it. And at one point, I think just under 50% were.
I'm just gonna say this, I question polite mail statistics, and I fully admit that I could be wrong, but I don't know how, I'd be interested to look into that some more, because they seem a little bit high to me, and it feels like, and I'm not saying that they're doing this, but it feels like they could have a way of reporting those statistics higher to, want people to make you feel good and want people to feel like that's a valuable tool for them to have, because they can say, hey, look, 80% of the people are opening our emails and 50% are engaging with them. But I questioned it, because why is Constant Contact reporting those numbers so much lower? So,
It's happened.
yeah.
Lots of fatigue out there all over the place.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
A cheery note to afterwards into our.
This must always be your closer.
Is this the longest meeting
No,
ever? Or?
It's getting close.
I've been a commissioner in it, so we still have just a couple more things.
we're not done yet.
Yeah.
I know. Thank you.
So we'll skip to you, Suzanne. And if there's any county administrator recruitment update, are you going to handle that, or we'll talk about that next time?
I don't think there's any change from Tracy's last update on internal interviews with 4 candidates tomorrow.
Okay,
That's the schedule remains on track.
great.
Following tomorrow, there'll probably be another update.
All right, well, we did 4.5. I can cross that one off. That's great. Any other county administrator news?
Nothing for today.
And don't feel like you have to not say something because of the hour. Do you have anything for us?
I guess I could just emphasize that my kind of top three priorities right now are partnering with Tracy on the Health and Human Services Director job description so that we can get that recruitment underway. I have a number of performance evaluations to conduct before I depart and not leave those in the hands of someone who doesn't know the individuals involved. And just getting preparation for appropriate handoff to the county administrator.
Right. Any commissioner want to update at this time?
I would like to 2 minutes to say or read something.
Okay.
So we received a request from Jim Fairchild to have his comments put in the record, and I feel like there was some back and forth with that, so I'm just gonna use my time to read his comments at this meeting. And I just want to say, I'm not saying that I agree with him or disagree with him. They're not my comments. They are just simply his comments that he wanted to have in the record today. Let's see. He said, I certainly understand wanting to look at full cycle materials management. When doing so, one loses any distinction between producers and consumers, which is an admirable goal. For in each stage of a cyclical approach, manufacturers, shippers, and even final stage / end of life managers that become both consumers of product and producers of whatever might become of those materials in whichever form they take. Is Benton County ready to take on the obligation of producing materials from solid waste it now collects? So far, the county has no idea of what it can produce from its current solid waste collection system that would provide any sustainable or usable product at either the individual county or the regional scale. Without that, no sustainable materials management plan would be complete. I have great doubt that you'll find a consultant capable of sorting that out anytime soon, but that must be within the scope of this or any sustainable material management plan. In the meantime, and in the absence of a Benton County solid waste management plan for the consumer side of receiving solid waste from the region, the county is ill-suited to permit any additional collection of solid waste or the expansion of the already permitted solid waste footprint on its landscape. So I just think, in my opinion, people should be able to submit whatever testimony that they want to meetings. And not necessarily, I understand we don't always have time for public comment, and I agree with that. But comments in writing, I think, should always be allowed to be received for the record for our meetings. And that's all I have for today.
You know, anything, Zan?
I have been pretty busy with both AOC and follow-up on justice system improvement elements. As you know, I'm in the meeting last week at the request of presiding Judge Williams House. We already discussed today, and I have been asked by a series of community members to meet with them. So I've met with a couple already, and we'll be meeting with a couple more community members just to hear them out about what their perceptions are about the bond measure and what potential path forward is. I do want to say that a lot of people have said that they're very interested in helping us figure out what's doable. And I'm hearing positivity from people. It's not like just a hard no. But that's coming also, I want to temper that with the fact that that's coming from people within Corvallis. And I think that the biggest pockets of no were very strongly North Albany and in Philomath as well, which surprised me because the initial impression about Philomath voters was that they were very supportive. And So I think that I'm just looking forward to doing more systematic work in that arena and thinking about focus groups and thinking especially about these different communications channels and where who voted no and who voted yes, being very strategic about how we assemble focus groups to target those populations that think very differently from one another, so that we don't get all the same echo chamber and then not gain any useful information. So anyway, moving on from that, at AOC, one of the things we talked about was membership dues. It's a perennial problem. With the large counties paying as much as 20 times more as the smallest county. We have a minimum dues amount of just over 10,000 a year. The biggest counties like Washington and Multnomah pay more than 200,000. And when we have a rate increase because of the formula that we use, the actual year-over-year increases, even though we intend the rate increase to be no more than 5% overall, the year-over-year increase for the largest counties tends to be more like 20–30%. And it's way too much for them to bear. It's just a lot of uncertainty. So that's the reason for the great angst over the formula right now. Most of the middle counties that are kind of where Benton County is, we're a little more indifferent because our rates don't increase that much year over year. And the value of participating in AOC is still a good value. It's much harder for the biggies and smalls. So that conversation didn't reach any resolution yesterday. The only resolution was to have another conversation, which will happen in July. And one of the, I think the most likely outcomes is that we will end up kind of freezing the formula and say that there's a flat 5% across the board increase in everyone's rates. And for the next year or maybe even 2 or 3 years, just do that flat increase at some percentage, will most likely be right around 5%. And then would try and rework the formula in some way that it is more equitable. It's we're not alone. Every association across the country is having similar kinds of discussions and debates, and it's very difficult because counties are also different from one another. But it was a positive discussion, but not a lot of progress. The other thing that we discussed was the status of bargaining with AOC staff. And that's critical to the dues discussion too, because that's been the biggest source of cost inflation year over year. They had an extremely generous collective bargaining agreement 3 years ago, which had both a step increase per each year and a COLA that was equivalent to the Seattle CPI. And as you know, Seattle CPI last year was 6%. So that total COLA was 11%. I mean, total pay increase was 11%. And that's been a major factor driving the dues challenge. And it has led to cutting staff in order to be able to live within budget. So that's that issue.
But there's still seems like a fair amount of turnover in staff.
It's interesting because there's also, they have a longevity bonus, and there's a discussion of creating 2 of them. So a longevity premium at 10 years and then another one at 15 years. They have at least 3 employees that are in that 15-year range already, and about 4 that are in the around 10-year range. So we see turnover in the legislative staff, but in the rest of the staff across the organization, there are a lot of people that have been there for, you know, Joanne, who's one of the administrative staff, more than 20 years. So it's kind of a bimodal distribution. And the legislative staff are the ones that have, I think, a lot of opportunity for higher pay, and they tend to jump around more. So that's what we see.
Yeah, I think that's common just in that field.
Yeah, I do too. So whereas on the IT side and the road side, there's a much less turnover.
Yeah.
So it was a very long day of AOC. I also was appointed recently to the Criminal Justice Commission's Justice Reinvestment Grant Review Committee. Unfortunately, I can't make their first date, proposal review, but I have a whole bunch of proposals to look at. That'll be an interesting process, but time consuming, so see how much of time I can afford to participate. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that tonight, Red Cross is hosting a spring social in Lynn and Benton counties. You should both have gotten invitations to that. Carissa Hedich, Mr. Tucker, lassoed me into co-hosting, so I will definitely be there tonight. That should be an interesting thing. I don't think they've done this kind of thing before. It's been quite a while if they have, but they're, I think, really putting a push on to fundraise in order to be ready for the next potential emergency response. The wildfires sapped them and COVID sapped them pretty hard. That is it for me, I believe. I am going to the NACO National Conference, just I think you both know that, so
Texas.
Austin, Texas. Yep. That's it.
Being in Salem yesterday was interesting. I haven't heard anything today about negotiating with the Senate and Republicans and gee, will you come back and do your job? Yesterday it sounded hopeful. I haven't heard anything today that would leave them in 10 days, working weekends. But the House is in fairly good shape, I think, as far as doing their work, and the Senate is so far behind. One of the workarounds was to, there's always call it a Christmas tree bill. I'm always so disappointed there's nothing about Christmas trees. An omnibus, a lot of money measures, I think, in one package that has good support because there's something in it for most everybody. So I'll vote for it. But with that as an example, they're doing a water omnibus set of bills, wildfire, several others, so that maybe put in there the things that people may not love, but they won't oppose it as a way of getting things through the door when the door opens. So I guess stay tuned on that. Our Representative Rayfield is in the middle of the discussions, and all I know, I think, considering where we're at in the day, I'm done. So meeting adjourned.